the actuals. Let's go for the actuals. Europa Natural
Greetings, humanity, and welcome to Europa Natural Law, a roundtable transmission dedicated to healing the madness, badness, and sadness plaguing our beautiful, bountiful world. Through regaining our sanity, reclaiming our inborn sovereignty, and honoring our inherent responsibility, we can improve reality. I'm Nemo Jones, reporting for beauty from Devonshire, Albion, where I write, speak, and sing for freedom, reason, and beauty. You can find all my stuff at nemojones.com. And joining me today, I'm just going to add in Oscar. There he is. Okay, so yeah, let's go around and introduce ourselves.
Hi, yeah, I'm Yvonne, and I'm from Norfolk.
Derek Barlocelli, Americano Italiano, living in France, but my mother is half Yugoslavian and born in Munich, Germany. She might not like this jersey, but whatever. C'est la vie, les amis.
I'm Oscar. I live in Denmark, and glad to see a new face here today.
You're muted, Paul.
I got the noob virus. Paul from South Africa, living here in France, and first time here on Europa Natural Law.
And welcome. Okay, so before we get stuck into the subject, which is going to be natural law expressions or expressions of natural law, which is quite a specific topic, and I'll kind of get into that afterwards. But Paul, should we just come back to you for a little introduction? Just, welcome to the show, and just let us know your journey to natural law, basically, how you came to be here and doing this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nemo. Basically, it all started back in 2011. I watched quite a visceral documentary. It's called Earthlings, and that made me aware of what happens with animals, with animal agriculture, in the pet industry, and all that type of crazy stuff. And then after that, I started reading the World Peace Diet from Will Tuttle, and he was talking about about the parallels between what we do to animals and how that comes back full circle to what happens in our human world. And then much later on, because that was back in 2013, much later on, I came across more PASSIO in the YouTube algorithms. And I was very lucky. I was blessed to find that, and that's how I learned about natural law, by listening to his original natural law presentation. And that's the gist of it.
Cool. I think we're getting your sound from your mic, possibly rubbing on your jacket, Paul.
Okay.
Just to let you know. So hello to the people in the chat as well. We've got Ali and Jeffrey there, and nice to have some action there. Right, so I'm going to add in this. No, I got the wrong thing there. Hold on a second. So basically, yes, the subject is this, natural law expressions. And yeah, would someone like to just kind of introduce us to that?
Yeah, sure, because people out there listening, you have to understand that this slide could be from one of Mark Passio's presentations, but the main one is from his monumental natural law seminar that goes on for nearly 9 hours. And this is pretty much slide number 129. and he goes over incrementally of all the expressions. And so people have to understand all the columns. And so the left column under the expressions, those are, you know, certain expressions of consciousness that correspond to the two right columns, depending on whether it's in the positive or negative polarities, because this is like, he's talking about the generative polarities of natural law. So yeah, and this topic for today is something that we were looking to cover for quite some time, but kind of incrementally we were doing episodes that have led up to this, so we already have a pretty firm established foundation of you know, the topics that we can already reference from our own conversations. But first and foremost, you know, we have to pay a lot of respects to Mark Passio on whatonearthishappening.com, and also of the One Great Work Network, who created these just incredible slides. And there have been other people that have, you know, taken that and kind of reiterated it and expounded on it, like Chris Nelson and folks like that, Brandon Spencer, Brandon Martin, Nate Cap, for example. So anyways, so yeah, we have covered love via agape, and we have done an episode regarding fear. And so our last one was about sovereignty, I believe, or freedom. Yeah, pretty much, you know, kind of the same thing, but you see on the left-hand side is that we're talking about the internal expression, and then the external expression, like that's like the outcome. So we need to be in the vibration and a daily operation of love, you know, just having that, you know, your heartbeat as that compass, you know, objective morality and things of that nature, thinking about mayat and keeping your heart as light as a feather, and then just being open to the knowledge and working on yourself, doing that inner work, the shadow work, to be the king or queen of your own, you know, inner domain, kingdom, queendom, right? And that is going to, you know, you're living in a more free way yourself. You're able to spark that that external freedom within your immediate vicinity per se. But yes, it's kind of like we're, you know, it's like one mind at a time type of thing. So we need to inspire and educate and motivate people to just work on themselves and make these ripples, so we can have that more aggregate freedom that's gonna ripple out into that external domain of the manifestation. And then, yeah, I'll pass it along. Or not. No, just kidding. Oscar, I know you got
Stunned into silence.
I think this slide is great to contemplate, and even as you said, to make your own version of it. Like to this particular one that we're seeing right now is one I like because of the background, right? It has like this very pleasant image of like some galaxy or like nebula thing, but the information in it is quite simple, even though it can kind of look a bit overwhelming. So to if I can go through it a bit just like you did, I'd say that the main thing to keep in mind here is that there is the positive and the negative expressions, which means that the way natural law expresses itself is through polarity. So either it's positive in its expression or either it's negative. And what determines that is free will. We, as individuals with free agency, with free will, we can interact with the laws of nature. And then the consequences of our choices, of our behaviors, are then determined by natural law. So if what we choose to create with, when we say generation, we're talking about creation. When we choose to create with one of these two poles, either love or fear, then the rest basically follows from that. That's why that you can see that it's arrows going down. It's there's a consequential, like there's that principle of causality. So there's the principle of polarity, where you have the two that you can choose between. You can choose to expand your consciousness, or you can choose to contract it. And then you have the consequences of that. So from generation, we move to initiation, which is like the first step. It's the beginning, and that's on the plane of mind. So you have that principle of mentalism, if you want to correlate it with the KYBALION and the 7 Hermetic principles. And then from there, you moved into the internal, you could call it the emotional, or the what's happening within a being, and that is reflected by the external. So there's that principle of correspondence between the internal and the external. So if we are ruling ourselves within, then we are beyond rulership, and no one can from without externally can rule us. And then when that is multiplied on the collective level, or the aggregate, when the majority of people, or even all people, are ruling themselves and not ruling each other, or attempting to rule each other, because then what we have is a manifested shared condition of order, of good, of freedom, if you will, or of peace, and so on. So we're all saying we want those things, and this graph here is, I think, a very simple but still to the point illustration or depiction of how we can manifest that condition of peace, of prosperity, and so on. And even though it's simple, doesn't mean it's easy. It's fairly, you can say, easy to understand to a mind that is ready to learn, and is not just closed from the get-go. And I would imagine that the most people we meet, when we speak to them, they have a degree of openness. They'll be willing to consider information. That's at least my experience, and this is information that I really enjoy sharing with people. And because I can take a pencil, I can pick up a piece of paper, and I can quickly illustrate how, if we start with love, expanding our consciousness, we accept truth, we come into knowledge. With that truth being in our minds, we can refine our understanding of it, we can process it, and we can integrate it, and we can master ourselves, which then means that no one else is a master of us, and we're not trying to be the master of someone else. And that ultimately leads to a condition, or like a manifestation of freedom.
That's a brilliant explanation, Oscar. And one thing that I also think is underrated in that chart is internal monarchy. It's really difficult to achieve. I'm still struggling with that. What do you guys think? Are you also struggling with self-mastery?
Most definitely, yeah.
Yeah, Paul, I think it's a life's work, and I imagine that if and when you actually reach that, it's mastering and navigating, staying like it, because there's external things going on all the time that's all too happy to knock you off. So it's all about navigating your way, even if, like, I've experienced it many times, Paul, where I just feel that's it, I've landed. I feel like that I'm completely in control, and then bang, something external comes in and knocks you off. So it's like, yeah, it's as long as we're in this plane, I think we'll always have to, yeah, master ourselves constantly. It's a constant battle until there's, I don't know, it's like what do they call it? The 100 monkey syndrome. Until there's loads of us that have reached that state, the harder it's going to be. Yeah. So it's, I'm sure when many more people take on this concept of natural law and the way it works, it will become easier because we won't have so many things coming in and knocking us off.
So I think, you know, like I wrote in my natural law thing series that I wrote, I started with this kind of claim of like what's most important for an individual to aim towards, and the answer that I give is that it's universal enlightenment is the aim. So when we're talking about self-mastery, there is I can't see how there can be self-mastery while there isn't justice in the world, you know, because it's as within so without, you know, so it's all one. So so that's why we can't kind of like say, oh, I need to sort myself out first, you know. It has to be internal and external at the same time, because working out there is the same thing as working as inner work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I think it's also dangerous to be vague about that point that you're making. Not to say that you're being vague about it. I just find that we're so good at coming with excuses. It's like one of our the things that we're pissed at is saying, well, I cannot because of this thing that I do not have a power over. And when it comes to self-mastery, that is what we have the power to. We don't have the power to change the external by trying to, you know, symptom treat, right? By as you were saying though, working, doing, let's say, community work or our actions in the external, if you will, they are totally part of integrating our sovereignty, of integrating our own rulership. So it's not only about knowing that you are born free and that you have infinite value. It's also about living that in the real world. So I think what you said made sense. I just also think it's important that we don't fall in the trap of saying because life is shit, then I cannot become better. You know, it's actually society that needs to change, not me as an individual. And I cannot really be a good human being. I cannot stop doing wrongdoing before the rest have changed. I'm not saying that's what you were pointing at. I just think that we need to be precise what we mean with it, right? That yeah, there is a connection, and it's not only about the internal sovereignty and internal monarchy. We have to move on from there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like let's just get the graph back up. I mean, there's so much contained in it. I think this is genius. This, you know, pure genius, pure like spiritual genius. This graph. I mean, that's why I think I suggested we have a show on it, because wow, the correlations and everything. It's just kind of incredible to me. I've never seen anything like this, you know, anywhere else. You know, it's so clear. And anyway, yeah. So I actually lost why I came back to it. I was going to point to a specific bit, but yeah, if someone wants to jump in, that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please go for it, Yvonne. You only threw in a couple sentences.
Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the manifestations, obviously, after the action external. So the manifestations, whether the outcome of the effects is going to be good or bad. I was thinking about that all week, and I went back to the Steiner education, and
Of a
someone,
certain Rudolph.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rudolph, and yeah, someone asked on the chat. I can't remember who it was because I've been dipping in. I haven't been very vocal on it. I've been busy this week, but I have been reading everything. And someone put on the chat, why don't people, the majority of people, understand natural law? Like why are they not taking it in? One, obviously, they don't know about it, and that's our job to get this knowledge out. But even when you do speak to people about it, they're still not kind of taking it in. So I went back to Rudolf Steiner and the education system because I think there's more reasons why people don't take it in, regards to mind control, but also the way we're brought up and the conditioning. So with the Steiner education, it's the children are viewed in like 7-year stages of development. So the first 7 years is all about the child experiencing the external world through their senses. So it's all their senses are developing. So if you put that in comparison to the conventional way of bringing children into the world, look what they're being bombarded with regards their senses. There's no, the majority of children, they're not even experiencing nature, so there's no correspondence there at all. There's not much correspondence. So take that stage and then move it on to the next stage, 7 to 14-year-old. That's where the feelings come into start to develop in the child. So in the Steiner education, all they concentrate on is letting the child develop their feelings and their emotions, their movement. That's why they do a lot of singing, musical things, movement, dancing, because it allows them to develop that side of their nature. And they really insist that they do not expect the child to do any kind of critical thinking. The education is not about that at all, because their brain is not ready for it yet. So in correspondence, look at what we're doing to our children, mostly in conventional schools. They're being bombarded. They've stopped doing it so much now, but only, I think they stopped it last year. In this country, in the UK, they put 7-year-olds through exams. They call them SATs. So if they're having an exams at 7 years old, then they've obviously been bombarded with exercises to use their critical thinking, which they ain't even developed yet. So what does this point out? It points out that the brain is being programmed. So if they're being put through an exam, if they're passing that test, it's not because they've learned it, it's because they've been programmed to answer the questions in a certain way. So, and then it moves on to 14 to 21-year-old, and that's when the Steiner education, where they start introducing more of the mind things, because the mind is starting to develop. So if you go back in comparison again to the way we're bringing up mostly our children, by that point, our children are completely expressing themselves with what they've been told to do. There is no development at all. So most of the adults that are walking about it just proves that they're actually programmed. So Yeah. I'll probably say some more about it, but I'm going to just end it on that. So, yeah, what I just wanted to point out was that natural law, regardless of whether you know what we're looking at on the screen now, is happening. So the outcome of people not letting children develop in those subtle ways and learning about their senses, learning about corresponding with other people through feelings and all their senses, the outcome is, natural law is, we've got a population of people that can't think. They're only going on programming, hence why it's very difficult for them to take on these concepts that we're actually talking about. So maybe I don't know. I think it's a really good way of coming up with some healing modalities and recognizing in people what development that they've missed out on in their childhood. If it's the senses, like the 1 to 7, let's put people in a room full of smells and get them back to nature. Then it might start reprogramming that. Just one. I don't stop, do I? One last thing. I was thinking about that side of it. You know, like the top elites, they get put into private school, don't they? So they get totally disconnected. So they're being programmed by God knows who. It made me think.
Elitists.
Yeah. It made me think that that's probably why they pay women lots of money so they can like dress up in nappies and be like, you get a lot of people in that high elite world that are quite perverse on the sexual level because they like wearing nappies and they want to be like suckled because they didn't have that nurturing to start with because they were like packed off at the age of 4 to some private school.
Sorry, I
don't
have
know.
to jump in when people say elite. They're elitists. They're not elite. They're not the best.
Right, yeah, anyway, I'm going to stop now. Let someone else go in.
Yeah, Paul, did you want to add something? You had more of a question than some comments, I guess. I wanted to give you a proper slice of the first round.
Well, I do have a bit of a question, actually, to Yvonne, relating on what she was talking about earlier. We all have the same type of programming that we go through with the education system when we grow up. So it's just a curiosity. What does she think is the difference that some of us do manage to come out of that, and it's usually the overwhelming majority that don't? What makes the difference?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, Paul, that when I went through the education system, I was quite rebellious. I didn't really listen to anything what they were saying. I was a bit of a daydreamer, looking out the window, so I didn't really take in their programming. And yeah, so I can only speak for myself. I intuitively knew that it wasn't my brain or my mind wasn't interested, and I wasn't corresponding with what they were chucking out. So I don't know what your experience was at school. I don't know.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I always got in trouble for disrupting the class in primary school, and in high school I got a lot of detention time just because I was always going against the rules. So yeah, similar experience.
So maybe you managed to bat off some of the conditioning.
Yeah, I can't remember what the quote is, but someone said some of us are fortunate enough to be born with spiritual immune systems. Have you guys heard of a quote like that? I just
Yeah,
can't
very.
remember the rest of the quote, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah, maybe it does come into to that as well, Paul. That you kind of bringing in experiences. You got to bring in past lives. Like, what have you brought in? Mhm.
I think I'll just jump in for a minute. I think it's more than conditioning we're talking about because it's like you're held. It's like it's like a grip of terror, really. you know, that it's to step out of line, you know, to like really completely step out of line is sort of not on the cards. You know, you kind of have to stay in society. You know, that leaving isn't an option, right? I mean, that it's very difficult to kind of really leave society. You know, there are ways of doing it, I suppose, you know, like being homeless, this kind of thing, you know, that, but like when you're a kid, you're kind of in some kind of machine that's going round, and you're like, you know, to go against it is really just terrifying. And I remember a point when, I mean, obviously I had quite it was unusual. My upbringing was unusual in the context I was in anyway. So I had kind of different messages coming at me from, on the one hand, you know, this kind of straight school that I was in. This is what, you know, when I was quite young. And then at home, my home was more of a different kind of approach to society. And I remember I've actually recently, it's come back to my mind this one day. I remember because I was quite a sort of, you know, like model student, teacher's pet kind of thing. But like towards the end of my time at that school, I would have been 9-ish or something, 9 or 10. I like completely questioned. I remember like in class, I don't really remember the details of it, but I remember like 100% questioning the whole thing in front of the whole class. Just going like, yeah, but what if I don't? You know, what if I don't comply? What if, you know, and it was like kind of extraordinary. And it's weird memory that just came back to me recently. And I was like, oh, wow, that was an intense freaking day. You know, it was like, it was really full on the way it went down. I mean, I remember some of the details of it, just like so crazy. And that was, you know, for me, I was kind of set up for that because in a way I was going with my home conditioning, because I was getting such mixed messages really from the way I was brought up, because it was like, well, my home life was, I mean, I won't go into the whole thing, but anyway, you know, the point that I'm getting at is that it's fear. So, you know, and to bring it back to the chart, you know, it's fear, the whole thing, you know, that it's like, so you're generate this top level, you know, that says generation, you know, it's love or it's fear. It's one or the other. You are generating, and it's one or the other, one or the other. So if you're brought up in this complete terror of abandonment, of being ejected from the tribe, essentially, you know, that's kind of updated and formed into something that's quite, I don't know, so precise compared to like an actual tribe. You know, it's kind of like got all these rules and regulations and ways, things you have to do and not do and all of that. If your whole kind of being, your whole basis of like feeling secure and feeling safe at all is in fitting in with the crowd, that's everything there is based in fear. And so no good can come of it, as we can see from this graph. You know, it just leads straight down to chaos.
I'd like to also add on a bit to your
Sure.
Your kind of, because when you're pulling it back to the graph and what we're speaking about, what is it that makes people able to recognize conditioning for what it is, recognize the education system as something that might not only be about presenting knowledge to youth, but also indoctrinating them to a certain role or a certain mode of operating that will be, how can you say, like it will make society function better, right? And I think a way to also tie it back to this topic we're speaking about, which is the way the natural law expresses itself, is we have the free will to acknowledge too, when, because we all at some point and multiple points will encounter information that will confront us, that will be challenging in such a way that it will ask us to, how can you say, it will ask us to face the reality of our own conditioning, because it will not be in alignment with what we have been taught, or with what we have learned. And what do we choose in that moment, or in those moments when we realize that, okay, there's more information than the information that I've learned in school, that this way of standardized education, where everyone is basically learning the same thing and has to learn at the same tempo and so on, and everything becomes so homogeneous, right? It doesn't really take a lot of thinking to realize, well, that cannot be the totality of what there is to learn. And so yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is basically this, yeah, that we have that choice to generate with love, to expand our consciousness, or we can choose the opposite of contracting and saying, no, that's it, that's all there is. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just point out, just because that's what you just said, that the top there we've got expansion, love, expansion, consciousness, expansion, and fear, unconsciousness, and contraction. Just to connect in with what you were saying. Sorry, yeah, go Derek.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's good that we kind of brought up, kind of how the upbringing when we were, growing up, learning things in life and being conditioned or indoctrinated, quote unquote, whatever, through the public school systems or private, whatever, they're all limited hangouts to whatever degrees, and they don't really teach people self-mastery and having the proper balance of both hemispheres of the brain, like Yvonne was talking about and alluding to. And it's kind of dimming the lights of these young bright minds, in a sense, with their imagination and stuff. And so they're kind of siphoned into this what is it, outcome based education system or whatever and stuff. So yeah, they're getting a little bit too much left brain imbalanced and not really operating from that generative principle of the heart-based center, right? Through love, and just love for life, love for themselves, love for their fellow brother, sister, their family and stuff. And yes, they need to be raised properly by their parents. We can't expect the goddamn fucking state or public private schools to be raising our kids, right? Like that. This is old news, but might be new to some. But yeah, like things to consider. And we cannot have our kids be raised on the goddamn boob tube or TV, TikTok, and all that jazz as well, right? So so I feel like, yeah, so the negative expression of fear, the unconsciousness, in parentheses, there's that, we're what people are talking about before. It seems like it's not just the fear, but we're kind of conditioned into this, like the fear-based mind control, right? Like, oh, like you got to obey these laws or you're going to fail or go to jail or go to hell, right? The religious, or government, or, false, all these false authorities are telling you like, you have to do this or you're going to consequences, but they're not, those are man-made consequences. And when we're talking about consequentialism in the natural law sense, they're just, immutable laws of the universe, right? And we have to really try to be the master builders of ourselves, to be the cause point to the effects in our lives as much as possible. And yes, we do live in this, collective consciousness and collective unconsciousness of all these people. And so this clusterfuck of consciousness, the Gordian knot, as I like to say, with all the fabrics of society, kind of in this entanglement of, yeah, there's a lot of fear and ignorance and confusion and control, going down the list of all the, on the right hand side of all the negative expressions, that, yeah, it's leading to chaos. And so we as magicians need to work our magic to manage all this chaos. That's what a definition of magic is. Not to get all woo-woo mystical, it just means chaos management, magic. And using our imagination, the imagination kind of has that word in there. And taking it from the heart-based intelligence, that's where it has to come from, and it needs to be cultivated at an early age. And yes, the parents do need to infuse their children with that proper love and all these things, and guide them to how to love themselves so they can love other people, right? And have that philosophia, and then meaning a love for knowledge, right? And
yeah, I would love for us to also explore that part as well, the knowledge or the ignorance, this initiation, because now we've kind
go
of
for it,
laid the foundation. I don't know if someone wants to speak to that. Is anyone up for that?
I'll give it a shot.
Mon ami.
So with knowledge, I find that a lot of people are very resistant to taking in new knowledge that contradicts their standard worldview that they've been given by their education system, their parents, their culture, and of course government programming. And I think they're oh damn, I've interrupted my train of thought, so you guys can take over.
I think this is like the cognitive dissonance as well, right? So I think this is still the fear, which then leads to the ignorance, which leads to that ignoring information. And what I think is worth realizing when it comes to these polarities is that that knowledge is where it's at, and all of the things that are not knowledge are kind of relative to that, how can you say, they're not even worth spending too much time on, because there's so many, but there's so many different, it's not true that it's not worth spending time on looking at the different misunderstandings or deceptions. My point was that the details of them are irrelevant, but the types that you can talk about, like logical fallacies, or like what it is that makes you, why people ignore certain information, right? Oh, well, I'm not gonna be vegetarian because Hitler was vegetarian, to come up with like a logical fallacy. So because we associate something with someone which is bad, then that thing must be bad as well. It's a bit random to bring up this logical fallacy, but my point is to say we can get caught up in the different ways that people will like the different things people will ignore. But when it comes to what is really important that to know, it's not a lot. I mean, there's infinite knowledge, don't get me wrong. There's so much that you can learn. Like, that process does not end. But if you go to the graph, that's why I like this specific one that Jane ESP made. It says acceptance of truth and morality. And accepting the truth of morality is knowledge of what? Is the knowledge of...
Repeat again. You went way too quick. Who made this slide? Because you needed to correct me, because I thought it was from Mark Passio. This is Jana ESP, right?
Yeah, I mean, originally Mark Passio presented this information, right? And then
right, she's the one that made this one specifically?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yes. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify.
No, it's good to give credit where credit is due. But that's why I like this one in particular, is because it emphasizes conscience, or the knowledge of right and wrong, and that's what I think is most important. People arrive or come to knowledge of. There's so many things that we can be ignorant of. I mean, I am not an expert. I am not an authority in the sense of having spent years on studying a certain subject. I'm not a very like knowledgeable person in one area where I can say this is something that I could fucking write a book on or something. But I don't need to be that. I don't need to have that ultimate knowledge to understand something as simple as morality. But that's where I'm saying there are certain things that will make people there are certain fallacies that will inhibit people to come into knowledge of morality, that will kind of punch that knowledge out of us, because it's so simple that, I mean, it's not really it's not something that you read in a book or that you arrive at discovery necessarily just by it's not like archaeology or biology or this kind of thing. It's really, really simple knowledge about how certain actions are rights and certain actions are not rights, because they do violate the property of others, or they do initiate harm. And
Can I jump in?
sorry, yeah.
I was going to say this. So this row of like initiation, this is like engaging the will, I would say. It's like it's where you make a choice. That's kind of what's happening on that level, right? And and it's like the heart of knowledge. It's the only thing. If you think about knowledge, like what's the most important thing? Well, it's knowing what's right, knowing what's the right, even like what's the right thing to do. Oh, here I am, I suddenly exist. What's the right thing to do? Is there a more important question than that? And so that's like the heart of knowledge. And as I don't know if it is actually Socrates, but the only good is knowledge and the only evil is ignorance. I'd say that this is what he's actually talking about there.
Yeah, I suppose it's what knowledge as well. What knowledge is the mind taking in? It's if you're talking about acceptance of truth and morality, what is the truth? So it's most people are stuck in front of the telly, so the knowledge that they're taking in, even though it's not the knowledge that we're talking about, it's still knowledge going in. So it's about choosing what kind of knowledge you're actually taking in. And to find the truth, I do think you need to tap into knowledge that's hidden, esoteric knowledge. And then we might start to understand as a collective that there's more to us than meets the eye. There are all these different bodies attached to us, like the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, and the spirit. If we took in the knowledge to understand these different aspects of ourselves, then we might stand a chance of bringing heaven on earth, bringing spirit down into our physical, into this plane. And I'm going to go back to the Steiner education, because if a human being is allowed to or get a chance to integrate their etheric body, their mental body, their spiritual body into this physical realm, then God, what a wonderful place it would actually be. And because we're, what's the word? Most of us, 99% of us, because those different aspects of us are stunted, like the tree stump, it's been stunted in some way, because not many of us have had a chance to let those different bodies and all the wonderful things that they actually bring with it they've not had a chance to land and manifest within our physical realm. So yeah, I do think it is about the right knowledge, and yeah, it's esoteric. It's what's been hidden from us. Yeah, and not taking that on and not learning about those things or ignoring them is gonna have the outcome of external monarchy all the time.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that real quick because, in the era of, instant gratification and information and whatever the hell, minus the meditation, right? Well, even there's an app for that, right? But we're having an epidemic of the dumbing Kruger effect, as I just call it these days, because, people act so fucking smart and got it all figured out, and people are running with it. So, on that right hand side of in the initiation expression of the ignorance side, I feel like people, they're just fed a bunch of mis or dis information or half truths and the whole nine of that kind of stuff. And yeah, of course, for any kind of poison pill to be swallowed by anyone, they're going to sugarcoat it with something that's legit, right? So yeah, that's people need to look into just the definition of paltering and the modus operandi behind that in and of itself. And this is just since eons ago, these manipulation tactics have been implemented. So yeah, it's just on the ignorance side of the negative polarity, it's the refusal of truth. Yet people think and are operating on and off the idea that they know the truth, so they're kind of shutting themselves off from being more open-minded to the more esoteric side of things and alternative media, if you will, and things like that. Even though it's a clusterfuck and people are bickering all day long on social media, in the twoofer realm, when people are kind of trying to split hairs and going over semantical arguments sometimes and all this stuff. So yeah, there's just like a lot of fucking confusion due to the fact that the pot is so stirred up with all this misinformation miasma sometimes. And it's unfortunate that people aren't just taking the proper time to filter out the bad knowledge or the inconsistent stuff and kind of have your realm of, right, this is confirmed fact, but I have this other stuff that's kind of like things I need to consider and look into more. So why fucking argue with people in that realm, so stick to objective truth and reality and morality. And I think that's more of the priority for people to navigate more towards that positive expression. You gotta love that shit, right? Agape, mother lovers. But yeah,
Absolutely, Derek. It does come back to one state of mind. So there is at the beginning of this conversation about like doing work in the community, there is just as much importance of and I think, Paul, you were alluding to this as well, about navigating your own mind. It's so important because, as I keep reiterating, it's I don't think none of us have come out of the mind control unscathed. And yeah, it's constant work. And that's what has to be taken. That's what true responsibility is navigating your own mind.
And coming to that, because there is that threshold of we are constantly learning about ourselves and attempting or like doing our best to be radically honest with ourselves, not deceive ourselves, and come to that knowledge of self. That's also a very important knowledge where when speaking about morality, that actually is a part of knowledge of self in a big way. It's knowing what our rights are, right? But there is that threshold when we actually arrive at knowing, okay, this is what is mine to own, in the sense of this is all of the different bodies that you spoke of, like our emotional body, our mental body, our physical body, all of these elements of our being, they're ours to master. They're ours to, and then we can take in our own time, say this is how I'm gonna work with it. I'm gonna, do maybe healing through one way, or do some sort of therapy, or just work, as we were saying before. Do like this is what my mission is to provide this form of value to my community and so on. But that threshold is knowing that I don't have the right to violate others. I don't have the right to rule others. And when we're speaking about that element, I think we're approaching, when we're that sovereignty part, which is the internal integration of that knowledge, where we wear our crown, where we, if you don't like that word, where we accept our own responsibility, as you were saying, right? And what do we often see in the external is that people kind of bypass all of that. They skip all of that, and it becomes that we have to dethrone some external authority figure. We have to decapitate them, as the French did, or like we have to remove someone's power, or grant someone, the weak, some privileges, and so on. And it all comes from this misunderstanding of what do we have the right to do. Because sure, we want to help people who are not as advantageous, don't have the same advantages as we have, but we cannot do that through immorality and expect anything else than chaos and slavery. So sorry, I'm ranting a bit, but I think the point I'm really trying to hammer here is how the king and queen archetype is something that we can fully embody, and through that embodiment of the internal ruler, of the internal monarch, we are that way dethroning every illegitimate form of external authority. It is not the other way around, that we have to first change society, and then we can be internally free and feel good, or like have that peace of mind. That's not how it's going to go. The peace of mind comes from accepting the truth. That's why if you go to the other side, when we're talking about the internal expression of natural law, that internal anarchy, that confusion that comes from ignoring truth, is a hint. Every time I'm confused about something, or I see, holy fuck, I'm so, everything is just messy in my psychology, and it's what is that coming from? Well, it's coming from a refusal. It's coming from a fear, right? And I think that was it.
Thanks. And I'll just say we're just coming up to an hour, coming up close to an hour, so we'll sort of, go around a last time kind of thing.
Hey, Paul, did that train come back around the tracks of your mind?
I'm thinking about something else now that I would like to add before I forget.
Go for it, man.
I was just thinking about the ends of those progressions of chaos and freedom, or was it? It's chaos and order. Yes, chaos and order. And I think the reason why we're currently experiencing so much chaos in the world is because the negative path is actually the easy path, and the positive path is a very difficult path to take, especially when the world is already in chaos. Or am I just talking shit?
No, I hear you, but it's
Absolutely
also less
Right.
it's less meaningful, along with being less difficult. It's also less meaningful. How meaningful does it feel to actually arrive at knowledge, to come into an understanding and be able to apply that in the world? How awesome does that not feel?
Well, it can often feel depressing, but it
Yeah, it can
feels
be.
great. Yes, for sure. It's a double-edged sword.
But it's like Tommy said in a comment earlier, that if I can find it, yeah, that he said he's given people this knowledge. I mean, I guess he's talking specific. I think the chart was up when he posted this, and people seem to understand it, yet they don't appreciate the gravity of it, you know. And that's like that's it, isn't it? And I've had these conversations with people where you go, well, what's up, you know, like. You know, imagine you're in a world where like there's a slave species, like, and you're like the star of the sci-fi movie. Like, you know, what are you going to do? What kind of, is this going to be a boring movie? You know, where you just kind of like watch Netflix till you die. You know, I mean, to be a bit like blunt, you know, it's like, what's the plan here, people? Like, get a grip. Like, this is not right. We're living wrong, you know. We need to act, and acting is talking, and that's what we're trying to do, you know. And here we are.
It is also a big mouthful. I mean, the way we've kind of say approached this topic today, we've talked about it in the big scale, right? The knowledge of the morality, how to apply that and create freedom. You can also maybe try it out a bit with something more simple, you know, like a simple skill. It could be like, you know, playing an instrument or cooking or something, like where you can see how the same thing applies, that you need some love. You need to want to expand your consciousness about that thing, right? You need to gather information. You need to accept how, okay, this is how it works. And then you need to refine, you need to practice it and such, right? Until you master it, and then you can create something really valuable with it, share it with the world. So maybe it's also that thing that you're talking about, that people don't really change or like see the gravity, that how Tommy was describing, of how much you can, how you can use this knowledge for so much. It's also because it's maybe a really big mouthful, and maybe people need to kind of understand, oh, this is actually how it works. This is something that I can use in my life. There's this yeah.
It's also a big mouthful and quite the substance to take your time to digest. You know, when you're drinking from the wells of wisdom, you know, drink deep, my friends, right? And in this world where great comment from Light Occult Revival that kind of stems from what I'm talking about, of people are conditioned to, you know, just be incentive to have this, you know, the easy left-hand path, and people become complacent, and the Dunning-Kruger effect, what I was talking about. And you know, we live in a world of like the pathwork that we're on is not easy, right? And it can be very lonely and all these things sometimes, and yada yada, right? Because we live in a worlds, whatever, of infested by stiff robots and drunken horses, and so people are drinking too much Kool-Aid, right? And they're drunk
and
off
hungry
of,
ghosts.
disinformation. So, you know, it's hard for them to take in more information. You know, they're already drunk. They're filled up with too much crap, right? So think about trying to feed someone who just ate a full meal, right? Kind of a similar thing. They missed out on that soul food, man. It wasn't the best bon appetit, but right. So like they could fall into that ignorance or refusal of truth just based off of, you know, what they think they know already, right? And what they've just been kind of spoon-fed through the propaganda machines and all these things, right? So the information that folks like us and other proper and prominent researchers bring to the table, it's not what people are really used to, unfortunately, or been conditioned to. It's just kind of like this, you know, light candy coated information, and now we got the TikTokification of all this stuff. And so, Mark PASSIO natural law seminar, 9 hours, what the hell, I don't have time for that. Yet on the side, they're gonna binge watch the fuck out of some Netflix bullshit. You got your fucking priorities up your fucking ass, motherfucker. So refusal of
We
truth.
needed to drop that F-bomb, people. We just
Yes,
had to do it. We gotta
Had
do
to do
it.
that.
We gotta do it.
get it out of there. Like
I have one last thought I want to share about what this graph really is, and it's kind of like it's showing you how it operates more than it's like this. We still have the power here. It's kind of like a calculator, and the result we get from the digits we put in, or what we prompted to. There's no need to be angry about it or despair about it, because we are the ones with the calculator in our hands. We don't have the power to change how the calculator works, because that calculator is just the natural way. It's just like the laws of mathematics, if you will. You're not going to change that 2 + 2 = 4, but you do get to change if you want to say, if you want to put in love, or if you want to put in knowledge, if you want to put in sovereignty and freedom. That's up to you. Is that what you want to put into the equation, right? That's our free will.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was sorry. I just you can go after everyone. I was just going to say well, a couple of things. One was about. Hold on, let me get the thing back up. Oh, sorry, I got all distracted here.
yeah, just to clarify, like
Yeah.
drunken horses, it stems
yeah.
to like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, type of thing. So yeah, that's forgot to throw that caveat in there. I hope people followed what I was getting at, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to say about, because I just think, we have it in the we have Mark's seminar in the description of the video every week. And I mean, I've said to people that I'm close to, I said, it's hard to take people seriously that haven't watched this, which is kind of maybe kind of an extreme way of saying it, but it's like really, and I was sitting doing some writing, I think, in a cafe, and someone I know vaguely came up and was saying, "Oh, what are you up to?" I said, "I'm writing about natural law," and they were like, "Oh yeah, what's that?" Blah blah blah. And I said, "Oh, yada yada. Oh, here, look, you should watch this seminar." And the guy literally like recoiled. He's like, he saw the time, and he was like, "I'm not watching that." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you're watching freaking." Breaking Bad, aren't you, or whatever you watch? It's like it's insane, like how people can't handle that. And it's like, so I want to like say, you got to watch that, people. If you haven't seen it, like, go on, give it a watch. I mean, I know we are largely preaching to the choir here, which is fine. But the other thing I wanted to bring in, just as which was, and it's funny because while people were chatting, I was searching for I couldn't remember the antonym of entropy that Mark. Well, exactly, that Mark uses. But if you actually search, that wasn't what was coming up. It was negentropy and all these other things. I actually went for a little kind of search because I was like, well, there's that word. Anyway, yes, it's entropy. And that's really what I would say we're looking at here when you look at this the generative kind of row. You've got love is really is syntropy, and fear is entropy. And I think that's a kind of just an important kind of thing to sort of like bring it into, I don't know, it's like, because love is this funny word, isn't it? It's got a kind of like, it's got these fluffy, undefined, what exactly does it mean? It can have these different meanings and stuff. But, if you could see like a seed, sprout, like come to life, that's, you can see that, right? You can't deny it. It looked kind of dead. It had been sitting there for years, and then it came into life. The right conditions came and it came into life. That's entropy. That's love. That's what you're talking about there. It's the generative principle. It's what actually we're made of. It's what energy is made of. And just to kind of like, I don't know, but just to bring that out in a sense more into the metaphysical or the universal rather than just the kind of human realm of the psychology that we used to kind of thinking of these terms, love and fear in. You know, it's a deeper thing. It's kind of beyond human in a way. So I just wanted to chuck those couple of things in. Yvonne, did you want to?
Yeah, as always, I've got a couple of things. Paul, you mentioned the word depressive. Like when you're looking outside the external, that things can get pretty depressive sometimes, and I can totally relate to that. I've spent a lot of times off and on in my life, like looking outside of myself and going, "Fucking hell." It's very, very depressing. I was listening to Cephicus Boza, one of his excuse me, one of his talks the other day of Black Earth Productions, and it was the first time I learned. I just went, "Oh, for God, that is what it is." So when people are experiencing the emotion of depression, it's because they've not found or they've lost their purpose in life. So I sat back and I thought about it and I thought, fuck yeah, I've lost my purpose. And yeah, so anytime you're feeling that feeling, just sit quietly and just go into yourself and go, what is my purpose? Like, fuck what's going on outside, because all these things are set up to like cause people like us depression. So yeah, look inside yourself and ask the question, because I sat there and I went, well, what is my purpose? And it was there all along. I'd just forgotten. So it's, yeah, everyone's got a purpose. Everyone has, and that's where the depression comes from. It's because we've lost it. And just one more thing before I go, because I'm dying for a piss. I've been dying for. Well, I really need to go to the toilet. When Oscar was speaking, I pulled this card for the group. I don't really know about tarot much. It's just my son's daughter lent them to me a couple of weeks ago. I'm just going to read this out because it's very poignant. It says, right, the Sun card advises you to have confidence in your natural divinity. Throw off any cultural conditioning that keeps you from being authentic with yourself. Step into the full light of truth and reveal your motives and principles. How apt is that? That's it. I need to go to the toilet, guys.
It's been a pleasure hearing your thoughts, Yvonne, and speaking with you all today. I think I will also all this tea here. I gotta head out as well.
Well, now, Paul.
Sorry, what was that?
Any last thoughts?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, any last thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think this information here is it's the key, and we gotta open the lock, which is basically our own being. We are the lock and the key in a way. We gotta open ourselves up so that we can understand how our own psyches work, how the world works, and align ourselves with morality so that we can create the world that we're all saying we want to live in. So let's open up the lock. Let's create that freedom and get out of the cage.
Okay. Okay. Any last thoughts, Paul?
My mind is blank. I apologize.
It's fine. Your mind
so
is clear.
then I will exit if my mind is blank. But thanks you guys for having me on. And it was a pleasure listening to all of you share your perspectives. Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks for coming, and you're very welcome another time as well. We'd love to speak with you some more.
Okay, cool. Have a good evening.
And you, Paul. Thank you.
You can stick
Okay,
around to the end.
guys.
You can kind of leave.
So, oh look, everyone's heading off. So it is
Oh,
literally
hey.
just me. Okay. Well, this is a messy end, but I'm fine with that. So, Derek, any last thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the other month, because we were talking about this and all that stuff, and I'm glad we did an episode on this subject. But sometimes folks getting into natural law, yeah, it is pertinent to understand the works of Mark Passio, but understand there are other researchers and truth speakers, scholars, mystics that have been speaking about this throughout the ages, and other folks that if Mark Passio is too abrasive for you and you don't like listening to someone that has that divine masculine fire and conviction, sometimes check out Manly P. Hall. He's fantastic. Or Rudolf Steiner. He's phenomenal. Or people that are currently living, folks that I mentioned, that have a really cool calm voice and like deep esoteric knowledge. Yeah, the Brandon Spencers and Nate Cap and Chris Nelson, who comes on our show quite often. So yeah, and if you like music, you can check out my channel Awaken Your Mind, because and I took the time to kind of line up some mixes that I've done in the past that kind of correspond pretty well with a lot of the natural law expressions and all that. I'm not going to go down the list and all that, but yeah, it's like we have to be well-rounded as these spiritual warriors. We cannot be bypassing any kind of bullshit within ourselves and out there that could be affecting us and that we should be aware of, so we understand the manipulative tactics and all that stuff, to avoid them and not be caught up in the fray per se. And I say that because you have a lot of spiritual people that are a little bit too much on the woo-woo side, and they don't get into much of the conspiratorial stuff because that's a little taboo for them. Have you spoken with these people? A lot of them are like really into yoga. They're they're into the self-care and self-help and all that stuff, yet it's like when it comes to like Illuminati type of stuff, it's like, ooh, that's naughty. And like, all right, then what? You think your energy isn't getting loosed out some way, somehow, ever in your life? And from who and where, what, when, how? Take it to the trivium. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, on the flip, people that are a little bit too much into the geopolitical level of awareness and conspiratorial stuff, they're not getting into that more spiritual aspects of themselves to be that proper quintessential human being and have a stellar personality, not just talk shit on the internet like, oh, you're not talking about the Jews enough and all this shit. It's like, shut the fuck up. That's like that's lower level veil awareness stuff. Yeah, we understand. Like, do you understand the hidden hands behind the hidden hands behind the hidden hands? Have you deprogrammed yourself on top of the programming, on top of the conditioning, on top of yada yada, and the generational traumas and all these things that we have to work through? Take your time. Let's try to work with each other, because many hands make light work. And I'm not trying to be some polite jerk and be all passive aggressive or whatever, but yeah, like, that's all I got. Thank you very much for hearing me out and everyone that showed up. So yeah, like, and yeah, check out Dissolving the Divide, because we really try to bridge those gaps of dialectical diasma divisiveness. But
Yeah, what's the subject next week, Nemo?
I don't know, Yvonne. What's the subject next week?
Sex is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, are we gonna do sexuality next week?
Yep, I'm down. Seems
Okay,
to be
cool.
an appetite for it on the chat.
Yeah.
So
I've never. Yeah, I think it'd be good.
You listeners, you're welcome to join us on the Telegram chat, which is linked in the description. And yeah, there's a lot of debate going on there through the week. And that's it from us, I think. Oh, I was just going to quickly, just because I had it here, I thought I do want to just say this bit from this definition of syntropy: a tendency towards order and complexity. That's enough of that. A tendency towards order and complexity, which is interesting, I think, interesting thing to contemplate, as opposed to just purely entropy, which is obviously the way people tend to see the scientific mindset, trying to think, well, there's just entropy. Well, that doesn't make sense, right? You can't just have entropy.
Yeah. What about that new EP that's out?
My new EP, yeah, go listen to it. You can find it via nemojones.com. Cheers.
Because you can be an anarchist too, right?
Exactly, you can. Find out how. Just ask me. That's what I need.
Yeah.
I need to get some merch. Just ask me how. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. See you next week for sexuality.
Yeah. Thanks for the comments, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cheers.
Check out that